Okay, so next one is it's more like realization. How to achieve actual realization from the practice of Mahamudra. So it says, so many shows. So the experience may be effortless experience be unceasing. So if you have a bliss without attached to, and if you have clarity without conception, and emptiness without intellect, these are genuine experiences. May we have these experiences and then continues. That's our wish here in this prayer. So we do want to have these experiences, but while we're doing meditation, we don't expect that they're arising, they hope and wait for a rise. When your practice becomes genuine, if you reach that level, experiences naturally arises. So that's why we don't really have to work for the experiences. But even if these experiences doesn't arise, doesn't mean your meditation is not doing well. A lot of people don't get any experiences yet. They become perfect meditators. So the next stanza, may clinging to experience as a good be naturally liberated. May the delusion of a thought being bad be purified in the expanse. May ordinary mind with nothing to remove or add, to lose or gain, unelaborate the truth of Dharmata be realized. So this is the realization. So the realization only again arises when we have no hopes of those experiences, and also no fears of losing those experiences. But if you have such a balanced experiences of bliss, clarity, emptiness, then we will have the realization. So clinging to experience as good be naturally liberated or dissolve, dissolve the clingings to the experiences. So then, confusions, as I say again earlier, dissolve the confusions. Confusions that are followed by negative thoughts. If we have those confusions that combined it or that polluted by negative emotions, a negative thought, we will not achieve a realization. And we have to purify the delusion of a thought being bad. When we, in here, when we practice, no attachment, obsession to the good part of the meditation, which are those experiences. And yet, we don't have to, have an idea of delusions as being bad. Has to be beyond that. Delusions or negative thought. Because when we meditate, there are thought arises. When we have a good experiences, that's fine. But when we have a negative thoughts, and usually we get a bad idea then, this is not good. This is something that I have to avoid. This is something that I have to free from. This is something that I have to escape. No, we have to be beyond that. Beyond the thinking that those even delusion thoughts are being bad. You understand what I'm trying to say? It's like these thoughts are delusional mind. They are arising from our own mind. It's like our mind is the ocean, okay? It's profound, it's clear, empty, vast, and everything. But then when waves arises, a lot of times it bothers. But we have to understand that wave is nothing but water. The water of the wave and water of the ocean, it's completely same, no different at all. So therefore wave is coming from the water and going back to water. It doesn't go anywhere else because it is a manifestation of the ocean itself. Similarly, the mind like an ocean and delusional thought like waves are coming from the mind and going back to the mind, which is no different from the mind. The both thought and mind have the same essence. Just as a wave and water have the same, wave and ocean have the same material, which is the water. Similar, the mind is like a sky, so vast, empty, yet the cloud comes. But going back to coming from the sky and going back to sky. The thoughts are like a cloud. So we don't have to think that those are bad. We have to go beyond this. It's the same thing. All the plants are growing from the earth, which is so profound, so vast, and so, stable, like mind. And then the plants are like the thought, arises from the earth and going back to the earth. So that's why may the delusion of a thought being bad purify in the expense, you see? Because they are coming from the expanse of the mind and dissolve into the expanse of a mind. So, in that stage, there's nothing to abandon, nothing to adopt. Because there's nothing to adopt, there's nothing to achieve. There's nothing to abandon anything, therefore there's nothing to purify or remove. Mere ordinary mind with nothing to remove or add to to lose or gain. When you have nothing to remove, nothing to lose. When you have nothing to add, nothing to gain. So that is unelaborated, the truth of Dharmata. Truth of Dharmata. Truth of Dharmata is the truth of nature of reality. So truth of nature of reality is beyond adding, removing, gaining, losing, and being bad and being good. So that's where you achieve the realization of truth of Dharmata. So this is our wish here. Unelaborated, the truth of Dharmata be realized. So we will realize the truth of Dharmata, or realize the true nature of a phenomena, by going beyond talking or thinking that delusional thought are being bad, all these bliss and clarity and emptiness experiences are being good. As long as if we are falling into those dualism, those extremes, we will not realize unelaborated Dharmata. So that's why Pamaparanjundoji says, may we free from all those and realize the nature of Dharmata. Tadila towa ta gom sineta lamthong gombala tine ni gombe ke ni nyam ta towa se atele do nyam ta ge tesal towa ge nyam tini shimba me be ge nyam dewa chingo ta kana ji bi chin ziba me be ge ani nyam salwa zodo me be ge tombe ge nyam ta tezo ge nyam tezo sanjin nyam jin ziba ra sa tro 네 냠도 저야 그런 랑사를 줘. 랑사 코라 랑금 뭐를 파트로래. 근데 되지 믹스가 가르쳐 버다 님보 띠는 매와서 거야다. 다가 나 얘기지 믹스가 님보 띠는 님보 주사는 drop 거야. 되게 개거지 매와. 되게 진짜도 참아 랑사를 줘. 아니 내도 들어봐라 얘기했다. 아들 가르송 요르시는 추주지 지순랑 도반은 내로지 통통한 드버스베스 다 내로지 통통한 가르고 요르시는 장보다 내가 인지도 탐지 다른 데와 고도 배나 제 남도 배나 용무게 남도라고 기억나요. 단디 두께를 삼바티데 메와 아니 기타스 문조기 다 냠야 양다와래 양 가서 대저 대로 장한테 다윗 인스 다로 그래스 아니 고 야사데 타마시바 마주바 센테가랑 그 가면 자기요 엔텔라 아니 가서 그래 파빵 줘야지 소랑 줘야지 되니 파빵은 잘 줘야지 랑은 톱 줘야 되게 개고치 요마이스 된다 주다 주니가 돼봐 주니가 돼봐 무슨도 도왔다 주담지 동문이 라지지 말아봐 내로 또 데코는 이제 또야로 그래서 상관에 내고도 와 아니 지 가르쳐 그랬다 남동 멤버들서 다음에 봐 되니 대선 또 봐기 냠한테 소리 되니 제와다 또 마치마 제와 제와메 봐 되니 제는 미냥바 또 봐메 봐 신바메 봐 되지 고기요래 스티니도 주다 주니 봐 So the next one is all these beings, nature is always Buddha. Not realizing it, we wander in endless samsara. May unbearable compassion arise in us for all beings who suffer endlessly. So now here is talking about the compassion. Nyingji. Usually compassion have three different compassions. Compassion that you have an object of a sentient beings. The compassion that have an object of a phenomena. And then there's last one is objectless compassion. So here we are talking about the last one, objectless compassion. So that objectless compassion has to combine with the emptiness. Okay? The reason why it says objectless means that compassion or that loving kindness or bodhicitta, whatever you call, it's completely combined or supported by the understanding of emptiness. So that's why it's called Tongyi Nyingje Yingboji. Emptiness, compassion, essence. So here what we have to think is, it says, although being's nature is Buddha. Yes, of course we already described nature of, not nature of all beings Buddha, but nature of every phenomena is Buddha. It's a manifestation of a Buddha, Buddha Dharmakaya. If the every phenomena is manifestation of a Buddha Dharmakaya, of course, the sentient beings are Buddha, because we said that we have this Buddha nature. The essence, true nature of a mind is a Buddha nature. So that's why, although all sentient beings are, then why they are in samsara if they are all enlightened or if they are all Buddha? As we already said, because of not knowing. It's like, last time we talked about the diamond being under your basement and not knowing that you have a hidden diamond down there. So we have precious Buddha Dharmakaya within ourselves, but because lack of realizing, lack of understanding, we were not being able to use that Buddha nature, Buddha Dharmakaya, so we are in the samsara. We wander in samsara endlessly. From the beginningless time, basically until we realized, samsara has no end. Generally, samsara has no end, but individuals of samsara have an end. When I achieve enlightenment, that is the end of my samsara. When you become enlightened, that means end of your samsara. That doesn't mean samsara going to, the realm of samsara going to be empty. No. So when we are in the samsara, by not knowing, not realizing the nature of a mind, so much pain and so much suffering. So when we see that suffering, and we see that they have such a precious nature, a Buddha nature, yet, because not recognizing, not understanding, they're experiencing suffering. So unbearable compassion arises. It's not like, you see some pain in somebody and then you feel sorry for them. It's more like an object of sentient beings, compassion. But objectless is beyond that. You go right to the root, seeing that their essence is a Buddha, an enlightenment. Because of not recognizing the nature, unfortunately they are wandering in this samsaric world, experiencing suffering. So your compassion is irresistible or unbearable, uncontrollable. So those kind of zumi nyingi, unbearable compassion. May we achieve unbearable compassion to sentient beings. You understand? It's this is simple. I think it's straightforward, this line. So the next one is, this display of unbearable compassion is unceasing. Within the affection, its empty nature arises nakedly. May we cultivate these integrated paths without error, constantly without day and night. So the unbearable compassion that we are talking about, these unbearable compassion has to combine with the wisdom that understand everything is emptiness. While that compassion, unbearable compassion arising, at the same time you have a deep understanding of emptiness. So these compassion and emptiness has to be inseparable here. So when you have this unbearable compassion arises, and then somehow you understand it's empty based on what you have read and what you have heard. Oh no, here the compassion you have, the more deeper of emptiness. So that's all about. It's more like ultimate compassion, Objectless compassion, ultimate compassion has to combine. I mean, when you get there, it will happen. The compassion, the profound understanding of a reality, understanding of a phenomena that is emptiness, that is interdependent. All those things the nature of the things are different from their appearance, which is completely empty, inherently exist. Yet you have deep compassion arises. It's called compassion and wisdom becomes the same taste. So when you have that kind of compassion, that means you are in a perfect path of liberation. You are at the end of samsara and one step toward the enlightenment. So again it says the the compassion, the ultimate compassion and ultimate wisdom, it's like a sun and then sun's rays, the light. Or the light and the lamp, they are inseparable. The emptiness and compassion is the sun and sunlight. Mamedane nawaji, toni ninji jiwakang, mamed nawaji nos. Devana ying George, Tatan to shirap the tap taji, can't say Hisuma. So again, George, Lord Atisha says, if you separate with your practice, you have a profound practice of emptiness, which is absence of compassion, then you are in boundary, means samsara. And if you have a very, very profound compassion practice, yet lack of wisdom or understanding of emptiness, the same, you are still in a boundary. So in order to liberate from the samsara, from the suffering, we have to have both tap, shirap, method and wisdom. The compassion is the method and wisdom. In Bodhisattva Chaya Avatara, Shantideva says, no, actually, it wasn't in Bodhisattva. Ninji Shiramene, Shibe Siddhamene. By the practice of wisdom can liberate you from samsara, but not from nirvana. And the practice of compassion will liberate you from not only from samsara, but practice of compassion will liberate from you from nirvana, but not samsara. In order to liberate from both nirvana and samsara, which means in order to achieve ultimate liberation, you have to have inseparable of compassion and wisdom. The eyes, clairvoyance, product by meditation, the ripening of a being, the purification of the Buddha realms, and the completion of aspiration to the Buddha's quality, may be perfect completion, ripening the purification and achieving Buddhahood. So these stages, the last stanza of the aspiration prayer, the second last or last stanza, which is more like a conclusion or result of the practice, okay? It's more like a result of Mahamudra practice. So what are the result of Mahamudra practice? It says the power of the meditation or power of shamatha and vipassana or power of Mahamudra practice, ji wenshi, and eyes and clairvoyance. So now there's 5 eyes and 5 different clairvoyance that can arise as a result of the practice. The ordinary eye, God eye, wisdom eye, an eye of a phenomena, an eye of a Buddha. These are different levels of the seeing, So then there's 6 clairvoyance. Like those are being able to perform miracles and having special hearings, reading others' mind, and seeing the previous and the future lives and so on. Those are the results. So we don't have a time to go through all these details, but those are the result of the Mahamudra practice. Of course, then there is the last three one is ripening the sentient beings, sentient minji, and the ripening of beings and purifying of Buddha realms, and the completion of aspiration. The ripening of sentient being means the ordinary sentient beings are not ripened, not ripened to practice the Dharma, to achieve enlightenment. For example, fruit. If you want to eat fruit, it has to be ripened, have to be mature. Banana. If it's not mature or ripened, you cannot eat it. It's too hard. So, to practice the Dharma, sentient beings have to be proper foundation. But as a result of the practice, you will be able to, turn the sentient beings towards the Dharma, which is ripening. And then completion of aspirations. So basically, those are the result of the practice of Mahamudra. So then the last verse is through the compassion of the Buddha and Bodhisattva of the 10 directions, and the power of whatever pure virtues there is, may the pure aspiration of myself and all beings be fulfilled according with our intention. So this is the last verse. It's saying that through the power of the Buddhas and all the Bodhisattvas, like at the beginning it says 10 directions, and 3 times, 10 directions, 4 directions, east, west, south, north, northeast, southeast, southwest, northwest, top and bottom, there are 10 directions. All the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in 10 directions, 3 times past, present, future. 3 times Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of every Buddha and Bodhisattva that has been in the past, and every Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that are going to come in the future, and Buddhas and Bodhisattvas exist at this moment, this present time. Collection of the power of all those, power and blessing and compassion, and also myself and every single sentient beings, including Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and our hearts, everybody's the positive virtue, particularly the Kamabaranjudoji means the power or virtue of composing this particular prayer, the profound prayer of Mahamudra Aspiration. Myself and all sentient beings fulfill their wishes. Whoever have whatever wish, may they fulfill. Those who want to achieve enlightenment, may they achieve enlightenment. Those who want to achieve bodhisattvas, may they achieve bodhisattvas. Those who want to achieve arhat, those who want to be born in higher realms, may they, whatever wish they have, but ultimately may all sentient beings, power and blessing of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in 10 directions and 3 times, and power of virtues, power of the pure virtues of whatever, accumulation virtues that we have created, be the cause for all sentient beings' enlightenment, all sentient beings' path. So the last one is, there are a few questions from previous sections, and I'm going to try to answer those questions here. The first question was, verse 5 says that learning scripture and reasoning free us from obscurations of ignorance. Does this mean we must study the sutra? Yes, basically we do have to study sutra. So Lord Buddha taught 84,000 teachings. 84,000 teachings are the method to remove 84,000 aspects of our negative emotions of sentient beings. So that's why we have to study. But when you say, do we have to study sutra? Sutras that taught by Buddha, there's so much. If you can study, read, if you have enough time, it is good to read, good to learn everything. But Buddha's teachings are so much, so that's why all those great masters of India and great masters of Tibet, they composed so many teachings that actually to purify Buddha's vast teaching into a shorter version. So we can study those, we can learn these, but in order to practice the Dharma, in order to free from obscurations and ignorance, yes, we do have to study a lot. So that's why the Karmapa, the Rangjung Dorje said in his first, the 5th verse, it says, "Longrek tupe mishi debilitorio." Menga sambe tizomina 좀 공정지 내려치 hinsa. Longrek, long ripa. Long means the teachings that Buddha taught. And then there are lots of logics, reasons from Buddha and great masters. We have to hear as much as possible, because when we hear those, then we know how to practice the Dharma. The idea of learning is know how to practice the Dharma. For example, if you want to be doctor, if you want to be physician, proper physician, you have to learn all the necessary steps. You have to know what kind of disease need, what kind of medicine and medication and treatment. If you don't know these, then you cannot practice. You will end up giving wrong medicine to wrong illness and wrong patient. Instead of helping them, it could create problems. So similarly, if we wanted to achieve enlightenment, we need to know how to do that. So that's why Buddha left so much teachings behind. And then all those great masters, they composed so many teachings so that we can learn. Those teachings that Buddha taught and great masters taught is not only to object of our prayer for devotion, but to learn, So it's always good to learn as much as possible. So the second question, what is the difference between contemplation and meditation? Contemplation and meditation is slightly different because first you learn, you hear the teachings from the master, then you contemplate. Contemplating means you look, you read on what you have heard over and over until you understand what it means exactly, You observe everything it says. But when just by hearing, you may understand for the first time, but doesn't mean it will stay in your mind. It is important to listen, but then contemplate, reflect on it over and over until you have no doubt. It says, Lorik to be a meditator, menga sambe tetsumina jam. The contemplation or reflecting on it will destroy your doubts. Tetsum, doubt, confusion. If you have a doubt and confusion, by reflecting, contemplating, you will understand properly. But then once you understand, you don't achieve anything. You don't get a realization just by contemplating. You have to meditate until you become actually the teaching. And by listening and contemplation, you learn what it says. You understand intellectually. But then in order to realize the nature of our mind, we have to meditate. Right? Meditate over and over and over. Then eventually you become. You and the Dharma practice or compassion becomes inseparable. Everything you do, you say, is teaching, is the Dharma. So it's different. Learning and then practice. Basically, contemplating and meditation is one is a learning and one is practice. So third one is vipassana. Third one, what is the difference between vipassana and Mahamudra meditation? Vipassana is a part of Mahamudra meditation. Mahamudra basically is very vast. Chagya Chimbo in Tibetan. Chimbo means great. Chagya. Ja means it pervades every phenomena, which include everything. So, but then the Mahamudra practice that we do has different steps. Starting from the preliminary practice, which is common preliminary, starting from meditate and contemplating on precious human life, impermanent, karmic cause and effect, fold of samsara. And then you do uncommon preliminaries, 100,000 prostration, recitation of refugee prayers, and then 100,000 Vajrasattva practice and 100,000 mandala offering, and then 100,000 Guru Yoga. Those are the more periphery of Mahamudra practice, like preliminary. And then there's actual practice, as I mentioned earlier. Shamatha is the actual meditation. Meditation that calms, that makes your mind flexible. Okay, that meditation have a different stages. Stages. Waterfall like a stage, river like a stage, and ocean like a stage, and then eventually like mountain. That's more like meditation, resting meditation. But then vipassana is the next step, which is more like analytical meditation, use more intellectual analysis. So eventually, of course, the vipassana meditation and shamatha meditation has to be inseparable to become genuine Mahamudra practice. The fourth question is, what do you need to finish do you need to finish the foundation practice before practice of Mahamudra? Yes, actually, the foundation practices are part of Mahamudra. Mahamudra have, as I mentioned, have a different steps. Step 1, 2, 3, you have to gradually, go. For example, if you want to be a doctor, you have to finish, preliminary schools, and then you have, take all these necessary courses to finish. Similarly, in order to practice Mahamudra, we have to starting from preliminary practice and then actual shamatha and vipassana meditation. So it is necessary to go through all these steps. And then the question number 5 is, I'm a beginner, but I have some idea of a Mahamudra meditation. Can you describe in your own word what is the Mahamudra meditation experience is like? Well, Mahamudra meditation experiences, I don't have anything from my own experiences, but as I mentioned, the great meditator Mahamudra's experience is, as I mentioned earlier, the blessed, the detached, the blessed, and free from conception, the clarity that is free from conception, and then free from intellect, emptiness. Those are the genuine experiences of a Mahamudra practice that's explained in actual teachings. Then of course, every time you do practice, even starting from preliminary practice, it makes you feel more and more comfortable, more and more closer and closer to the practice, and also it brings, more you do it, it brings you closer and closer to not only comfortable, but also to believe everything that says in the teaching, because that's the idea. At the end eventually, and you and teaching has to be inseparable. Okay, so I am going to stop here, and thank you very much for your time. And although we try to cover this in a very short time, and I hope you got some information from this, and also I hope that you will continue to go through these texts and try to read and try to understand and contemplate and meditate, so eventually become a great Mahamudra meditator, Mahamudra practitioners. Okay, so now I'm going to do a short prayer, dedication prayer. Sive